One, two.
Hello.
Hello, do I have the honour of addressing Prince Michael of Sealand?
You certainly do.
This is Lee here from Central FM in Spain. You okay to chat with me for a while?
Yes, I'm fine. I'm a bit coffee and gurgly because I've had some kind of a fluey thing, but we'll have a go.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very privileged and very pleased to welcome to the programme Prince Michael of Sealand. How do I address you, sir? Is it Your Highness or what's the correct title?
Well, you can call me whatever you like, really, because I've been called many things in my life and none of them ever given offence, so feel free.
So if I call you Michael, that's okay then?
That's fine by me.
Okay. Now, your father, if I'm right, created Sealand quite a few years ago.
More than that. 1967, 2nd of September 1967. We'd been in the commercial radio business, the pirate radio business, prior to that. I don't know whether your listeners know about this, but back in the 60s, the BBC had a monopoly on the airwaves. And the only pop music the youngsters could hear was on a Sunday afternoon about 6 o'clock. I think it was Alan Freeman used to play the top 20. Other than that, it was all what they called chamber music and people talking about politics and things. There was no pop music on the radio in the UK unless you listened to Radio Luxembourg. And back in the early 60s, a few entrepreneurs, my father one of, put radio stations on ships and old wartime fortresses outside the then 3-mile territorial limits of the UK and broadcast in the UK, and the government were horrified and detrimentally labelled them pirates, which of course the public loved. It was the best bit of branding you could have done.
Yeah.
So I mean, it all started from there, and they brought in the Marine Offences Act and closed the stations down, and my father looked for a better jurisdiction. And he found Ruff's Towers, which was further out to sea in international waters, and but had the bizarre idea to declare independence.
Now, Ruff Towers was originally a Second World War fortress for Marines and things like that stationed there.
Yeah, it was a naval fortress. The German bombers and mine-laying aircraft used to follow the Thames up to London. To lay mines, to interfere with the convoys coming from the United States, but also obviously the Blitz in London. It was before the days of GPS and all that carry on, and the easiest way to navigate was to follow the Thames to London. So the government, or the church, they were called churchill forts, decided to put some forts across the mouth of the Thames estuary, and they were naval fortresses, such as Sealand's one, and there was also some army fortresses put further up the river, but they were basically anti-aircraft, they had surface-to-air guns.
Now, talking about things like that, you actually had to fight for Sealand after you declared independence from the British government. That must have been quite frightening.
It was an adventure. We got involved with some German businessmen, and I think my father went to Austria to meet them, and they didn't agree with each other's ideas. And much like 1939, when the Germans marched into Poland, they decided if it's an independent state, we'll take over Sealand by force. So that's what happened. And I was held prisoner for a few days, and I was there on my own. And they came out in a KLM helicopter, and I ended up being locked up in a room for 3 or 4 days, dumped on the harbour wall at Scheveningen in Holland, and a few days later, mounting a helicopter, told my father to take the fortress back from the mercenaries they left out there. It was a very interesting time.
Interesting, it sounds it. It must be horrendous. Well, I don't know. I mean, is it horrendous living on a World War II fortress?
Not at all. I mean, it's just warm and it's comfortable, and you don't. If you're inside, you don't really feel the weather. It's great looking out there. We now have big double glazed windows and things. It's great looking out the windows, and when the weather's really bad, it's fascinating. But no, it's fine. Come on, everybody wants their own castle.
Yeah, but you've got everything, haven't you? You've got a castle, an island, and a country. Well, a principality. Now, the Principality now has actually been recognised, certainly by the British government and also by Germany and Netherlands.
Well, it all stems back mainly to the German one, which is probably the most important one. So it stems back to the fact that when we took the fortress back from the German invaders that mounted the coup, we released most of the mercenaries, but one of the guys was a German lawyer named Gernot Putz, and he had a Sealand passport. So he committed treason. So we put him in front of a court and found him guilty, and we kept him there for, a few months. And the German government approached the British government and said, "You're the nearest neighbour, do something." And the British government said, "There's nothing we can and we will do." So they were a bit stumped there. So they approached our lawyer in England and said, "Bond demands the release of Herr Gernot Putz." And our lawyer said, "Well, I can't promise you anything, but I'll put it forward to my dad, Roy." Anyway, it ended up the ambassador came to visit the helicopter, and we didn't release the guy. But at the end of the day, they opened up diplomatic relations with us to discuss the release of Gernot Putz. So yeah, that's de facto recognition.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I love that. Now, the British government still treats Sealand as an independent state, which once again I think is fantastic. But living there with all of the, as you say, the sea gets blooming rough there. You must have to stockpile supplies.
Oh, we've always stockpiled. In the past, fuel and food and water. We've always made sure we got nearly a year's supply of everything. But these days, of course, we use, as far as energy is concerned, we're pretty green, mostly wind power and solar. But yeah, we've always made sure that we're ahead with everything, because you never quite know with the weather and that. We catch our own fish and everything, so that's quite handy sometimes. But we've always made sure we have a full storeroom.
You actually had a fire on Sealand as well in 2006, was it? And the RAF came and rescued you?
We had a big fire. That one of the generators ran away with itself, and it caught fire, and that was a bit of a nasty episode. And someone did say after that, for the Air Sea Rescue came out, the UK Air Sea Rescue, and they said, call yourself independent, and you look to the British government for rescue. But what they didn't know was that we had, I wouldn't say secretly, but just quietly, been practicing with the RAF Air Sea Rescue on their request to lift people on and off offshore structures, shall we say, for years. And they would send us an email, "Can we come and practice today?" And we do it, and it was all quietly done, and so we'd worked with them for years.
Sealand itself is quite a few miles off the coast of the UK. Do you ever think of running tours or having guests come to stay?
We've had guests over the years, and a few weddings and one thing and the other, but insurances and that things are a bit awkward these days with that and the COVID thing still hanging around a little bit on the horizon. So we don't really encourage tourism. We have journalists out now and again, but we don't encourage tourism right now.
The other thing I was fascinated by is you have your own list of nobles. One of them is Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, well, yes, indeed. Yeah, quite a few interesting people in our nobility, and that came about by obviously it's hard to finance such a project for so many years, and then I read somewhere that 13th century French nobility used to finance their military campaigns by marketing letters of marque, right? Selling letters of marque, titles of nobility. And with the advent of the internet, that became the way that's how Sealand supported himself. So if you want a nice, very different present for Christmas for one of your friends or relatives, go to sealandgov.org and you can purchase a title of nobility.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the names. Jeremy Clarkson, Ralph Little. I've got to do this. It sounds fantastic. You can become a lord or a lady of Sealand. What a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's something exclusive, and we have quite a few members of our nobility who have decided to join our adventure, so it's nice to have all the support.
Now, you've also written a book, Holding the Fort, which is the story of, basically, I guess, all the trials and tribulations of Sealand. That's available, isn't it?
Yeah, Holding the Fort, it's on our website, or you can get it on Kindle. Yeah, I mean, we've had a very interesting history. So it talks about all of that over the years, and yeah, I enjoyed writing it. It took me a long time to write it, but I enjoyed writing it.
The island, the Principality, let's call it that, is fully occupied all the time. Is it Liam, your son, that's out there now?
Yeah, Liam's out there at the minute. But my two sons, James and Liam, they spend quite a lot of time there, and yeah, everybody's involved.
Now, I talk about the sort of horrendous weather and things like that, but on a nice day, it must be beautiful. It must be so tranquil.
Sometimes the sea is so quiet; it's like a sheet of glass, and you wouldn't believe, you're on the same planet, and so tranquil, as you say, and in the summertime, the weather, the sunshine, and that, it's great. There's a good bit of sunbathing down out there.
No, I bet it's good. I bet it's really, really good. When you come to get supplies and things like that, are they flown in, or do you get a boat to bring them out?
Mainly by sea, because it's more cost effective. We use helicopters sometimes. It's a very civilised way to travel, but mainly by sea.
Do you get occasionally sort of ships, boats, things like that, wandering into what must be your territorial waters? And do you sort of have to scare them off or what?
No, we're friendly people. Don't believe all the stories you hear about us. Get a lot of yachts passing close by and one thing and the other. I remember years ago, a fella come out in one of those hydrofoils, one of those racing boats.
Oh, right.
He brought us out some fresh oranges and apples, and he stopped under the winch and put them in the lifting basket. He said, "Can't stay for long. It's not meant to be in the sea. This boat, it'll sink. It won't stay much longer." He went again. But yeah, we've had lots of visitors over the years.
Oh, it's fantastic. It really is. It sounds amazing, I must admit. If anybody did want to come and visit Sealand, God forbid, I know you said you don't do it that often. Could they get in touch with you and sort of request permission?
Yeah, they can write into contact at sealandgov.org and request permission, but it's highly unlikely. Right.
Okay. I accept that. Prince Michael, Your Royal Highness, sir, thank you so much for your time. That book, Holding the Fort, if you go onto the Principality of Sealand website, you can actually find a link to it, can't you?
Yeah, there's links to everything there. There's an online shop.
And also the titles, which I'm toying with that. That could be a brilliant present for the wife. I love it. I think it's brilliant.
It's certainly something a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay, sir, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and may we wish you well for the future.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. All the best. Happy Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Bye for now. Bye-bye. Was that okay for you?
What's that?
Was that okay for you? There was
Yeah,
everything
no,
all
it's
right?
fine. Yeah.
All right.
You're in Malaga, I see.
Yes. Just outside Malaga, inland, where we live with proper Spanish.
Where about?
A little village called Alarin El Grande.
Yeah, no, yeah.
All right.
We have an apartment. We had it for years in Los Beliches.
Oh, I know Los Beliches. Yeah, Fuengirola. Yeah, lovely area.
Okay. Anyway, have a good Christmas.
And you, sir. Thank you for your time once again.
All the best.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.